After menus, Android supports a different kind of menu called as context menu. So this menu is spawned whenever we long press on a view. That is, if I have a button and I long press on a button, then a context menu will be launched. This is called as context menu because it is launched in context with the view which is long pressed. Okay, so whenever you will be long pressing a view, a context menu will be launched, and this menu will be with respect to which view you have long pressed on. That's why it's called as a context menu. First of all, we have to understand that before a view can spawn a context menu, we have to register that view with the Android OS to display the context menu. This is done with the help of the following command. You have to just say register for context menu and in bracket pass the object of the view that you want to register for the context menu. Okay, so we'll do this in actual practice. Let's take an example of context menu. We'll create a project named context menu demo, and we'll add a button to the main XML file and name it as btn long press. That is, the ID of the button will be btn long press. Whenever someone long presses on the button, a menu should pop up. Again, we have to add a XML file with the name context menu, and we have to add the menu items to it. Where will you place this context menu.xml file? You will place the context demo.xml file inside the res/menu folder because this is a menu file. The remaining part should be very similar. You have the item. Now context menu does not have icons. That is why you will have item, Android ID equals to itm add, and title equals to add. You can have icons over here, they will be displayed, but for the sake of simplicity, we have just given the ID and the title over here. I have the other item of update, delete, and select. So you have 4 items over here. All the items have the ID as add, update, delete, and select. The name as add, update, delete, select. Okay. So far so good. We have added an XML file with the name contextdemo.xml inside the res/menu folder, and we have added a button with the ID btn long press in the main XML file. Let's now go to the Java code of this. Inside the Java code, we first take the reference of the btn long press button by saying button btn long press equals to button find view by ID r.id.btn long press. Now we have to register this button for a context menu. So we'll just have the command register for context menu btn long press. This indicates that this button btn long press has now been registered for a context menu. Once we are done with that, then to spawn a context menu, Android requires you to override a function on create context menu. So whenever you long press on a view that has been registered for a context menu, Android will by default call on create context menu for it. So we'll do that. We will say public void on create context menu. As you have seen in the last example, we don't need to type this complete on create context menu. We have to just say on create control space. Options will appear. From those options, you have to pick on create context menu. All this public void context menu view context menu info will be written automatically for you by Android. Over here, we have to call to the base class super.onCreate, and then we have to check if the item that we are viewing is that item the long press item. If that's the case, then you have to use the menu inflator service as we did last time, and you have to say mi.inflate. Which menu you want to inflate? You want to inflate r.menu.contextDemo. Where you want to inflate this? You want to inflate this inside the systems menu. Once you are done with this, you will be able to spawn a context menu on the screen whenever you long press on the control btn long press. I hope this makes sense to you. I'll just reiterate some things again. whenever you whenever you long press on a control, that control which has been registered for a context menu, then on create context menu is called. Inside this on create context menu, you get the view which was long pressed. With that view, you get the ID of the view. If that ID was same as the ID of the long press control, then we call the menu inflator service and we inflate the menu on the screen. Let me give you a small assignment. If you want, you can pause the video and copy down the assignment. Whenever an item in the context menu is selected, the function on context item selected is called. Okay. In our case of the simple menu items, there was on options item selected. You have over here on context item selected. You have to override this function and display a message when the user clicks on any of the context menu item. In our case, we had 4 items: add, update, delete, select. You can just override this function and compare the ID of the item and check if the ID was insert, update, delete or select. If any of the IDs was found, you can just toast a message that you clicked on this particular item. I am also giving you a hint that you have to use the get item ID function to get the ID of the context menu item and compare it with the IDs available in the context menu. Let's do it in actual practice and see how does the context menu work. Let's do it for the context menu application. Before starting the context menu application, we have to make sure that we have created the menu demo and we no longer require it. So just right click on it and say close project. Let's go to file and say new Android application project. Let's give the application name as context demo. Give the package name as com.fitech. Give the build SDK as Android 2.3.1. Uncheck on this. Next. Give the title of the application as context menu demo. Once you do it, you get the context menu demo over here. Just remove the hello world from the layout. Right click on the layout and say change layout. Make it vertically arranged and let me have a button over here. This will be the button which will be long pressed to show that context menu. Let me right click on this and say layout width and match parent. Right click, edit text and long press me, and right click, edit ID, give it BTN, long press. Okay, now this should be very usual to you. Moving along, let's add a context menu XML file. So just right click on the menu and say new Android XML file. You have to be sure that all the menu XML files go inside res/menu folder. So to add a menu file, you have to right click on the menu folder and say new Android XML file. Give the XML file name as context menu. You can give any name over here, but as we are defining it for a context menu, so I am giving it context menu. Let me press finish over here. Now, when I come to the XML file, I have to add some items. So let me add item Android :ID equals to add reference of ID slash, let me give the ID over here as ITM insert, and let's give the title over here Android title equals to, let's give the title over here as insert. Okay, so this will create a menu option with the ID as ITM insert and title as insert. Copy this thing 4 times so that we get for insert, for say update, for delete and for select. Okay, so in update, just give a title as update. Over here give delete. Over here give select. Okay, once you're done with this, then we have to write the Java code to actually spawn the context menu. So let's go to the source folder inside the package, open the main activity. We don't want to have the menu, so let me just remove this complete code from here. So let's come with a step 1. Step 1 was to get the references. I'll say final button btn long press equals to button find view by id r.id.btn long press. Okay, you saw me type that very fast because I was using control space. You can also do it by practicing this complete code. Now we have to register this control for context menu. So we have to say register for, as I typed that, if you could see, I typed just register F and control space. It gave me register for context menu. I have to pass a view over here. In my case, that view is btn long press. So it will actually register this view for the context menu. Whenever a user will long press on this button, a function called as on create context menu will be called. So let me just write that thing, on create context menu. Over here, we have to compare the ID of the view with the ID of the btn long press. So I'll say if v dot get ID is double equals to r dot id dot btn long press. If the IDs match, then we have to spawn the context menu. Spawning the context menu is very simple. We have to again say menu inflator mi equals to new or equals to get menu inflator, and I have to say mi dot inflate. We have to inflate which menu? We have to inflate the menu r dot menu dot context menu and press a semicolon over here. As you do this, whenever you will long press on the control, you will be able to get that menu working. So let me right click on the context demo, run as Android application. Let me come to the device. It will launch that application very shortly. As we can see, we have the application. When I click on this, nothing is happening. But when I long press on this, as you can see, we have a menu coming over here. This is called as a context menu. When you click on it, nothing is happening because we haven't written which method? Correct. On context item selected. So let's write that thing. Over here we'll say on context item selected. As you can see in the Java doc, it's saying that this is called whenever an item in a context menu is selected. So let's control space on this and say on context item selected. It will give me the complete implementation of it. I have to just say if item dot get item ID is double equals to r dot id dot itm insert. So over here I have to just spawn a toast by saying you clicked on insert context menu item. Let me just make it a toast dot length long because it is a long text. Show this, and I'll just say return true over here because we are able to handle the call. I'll just give a else over here, else. Let me just give a text. This has to be implemented yet by the student. Okay. Let me just right click on this and say run as Android application. See, I pressed the home button, so all the activities got in the background. Now this will be launched. When I long press on this, it says insert. You click on the insert context menu item because this was called. When I long press on this and say delete, this has to be implemented by the student. So you have to implement this, and once you are done implementing, then you can test it by all the clicks. After context menus, we will move our attention towards alert dialogs. Alert dialogs will appear when the user interaction is required by an application. For example, whenever you are exiting the application and you want to make sure if the user does actually want to exit the application or not. So you will spawn an alert dialog Are you sure you want to exit the application? Yes or no. If the user clicks on yes, then he will exit the application, else not. This is the main utility of the alert dialog. This is one more example. When the user is required to accept a license agreement before using the application, at that time you also require an alert dialog. That's fine. To show an alert dialog, you must follow the given steps. First of all, you have to build an alert dialog with the help of alert dialog.builder class. There is a builder class for alert dialog. You have to first build an alert dialog with the help of this class. After building the dialog, you have to display the properties of the alert dialog. The properties can be the title of the dialog, the message on the dialog, the buttons of the dialog, etc. Then you have to write the on-click listeners for the buttons. Like in our example, do you want to exit yes or no? You have to write the on-click listener for yes and the on-click listener for no. You have to write these on-click listeners. Then you have to create the alert for displaying to the user, and then you have to show the dialog. Okay, I hope these 5 steps are clear to you. You have to first build the alert dialog, set the properties of the dialog, write the on-click listeners, create the alert, and show the dialog. Let's create a simple alert dialog. First of all, create a new project with the name alert dialog demo. Add a button to the main XML file and name it as btn alert. Okay, so we'll have in the main XML file just one button named as btn alert, and we'll add an on-click listener for the button in the Java class. That's fine. After adding the on-click listener, we have to write the code which is given in the next slide inside the on-click listener. So let's start with that. Inside the on-click listener, we have to do step 1, that is building the dialog. To build the dialog, you have to say alert dialog.builder, that is your builder class. A build is the object of alert dialog.builder equals to new alert dialog.builder. This will create a new object. Inside the bracket, you have to pass the context of the application. In our case, the context will be main activity.this. In this case, the activity name was alert dialog demo, so we had alert dialog demo.this, but in our case we'll have main activity, so we'll say main activity.this. Once the dialog is built, let's set up some properties of it. We'll say abuild.setMessage. This is an alert dialog. Are you sure you want to quit? This will be the message on the dialog. Now the alert dialog will always have 3 buttons. One of them is called as the positive button, the negative button, and the neutral button. The positive button is on the left of the dialog, the neutral is on the center, and negative is on the right. Okay, if we see an application, are you sure you want to quit? Yes, no, cancel. Yes, which is on the left of the dialog, will be called as the positive button. No, which is on the center, will be called as the neutral button, and cancel, which is on the right, will be called as the negative button. So we'll say abuild.setPositive button. Okay, I am done. Comma. Now we have to write the on-click listener for this button. So we'll say new dialog interface.onClick listener. Over here, whenever someone clicks on this, we'll simply say finish. Finish will exit the current activity and will go back to the previous activity. Okay. So in our case, we want to finish the activity. So we'll say finish. We'll say abuild.set negative button. No, I will stay. And over here, we will just cancel the dialog by saying dialog.cancel. So what we have done, we have builded an alert dialog.builder object. Inside this object, we have set the message of the dialog. We have set the positive button. We have set the negative button. Now we have to create the dialog. So we will say alert dialog.dlg equals to abuild.create. The abuild.create function will create this dialog and give it to me inside DLG. Now we have to just show that thing by saying dlg.show. By this simple code, you will be able to display an alert dialog with 2 buttons. When someone clicks on OK, I am done, it will go out of the application. When someone clicks on cancel, the dialog will be cancelled. Let's do it in actual practice and see how do we get the output of the alert dialog. So let's do it for the alert dialog application that we are going to build. For that, we'll say File, New, Android Application Project. Let's give the application name as Alert Dialog Demo. Let's give package name as com.fitech.alert dialog demo. Give the build SDK as Android 2.3.1. Uncheck on this. Next, next. Give the title of the application as Alert Dialog Demo. Once you are done, as you can see, you have two projects open over here. One is Alert Dialog Demo and the other is Context Demo. We don't want Context Demo, so just right click on this and say Close Project. Let's remove this text view from here by right clicking and deleting it. Let me add a button very quickly over here. Also, let's change the layout of this to linear layout. So change layout and say linear layout. Then right click on this and say layout with match parent and make the text on this as exit the application. When someone will click on this, a dialog should appear. On that dialog, if someone presses yes, I want to exit, then only the application should exit. Just right click on this and say edit ID. btn exit application should be the ID of this. I am seeing an offset over here, so let's correct that offset by going to the activity main. Right click on it and say source cleanup and OK. There is a layout margin over here. Remove this margin so that you get the layout completely filled with the button. I hope we are making sense. Now let's go to the source folder inside the package, inside main activity. We don't want this on grid options menu. Let me remove this from here. Let's write step 1, get the references. So I will say final button btn exit equals to button find view by id r.id.btn exit application. Now you have to appreciate the fact that the ID of the button and the name of the object can be separate because this is the name of the object that we are giving, while this r.id.btn exit application is the ID of the view that we had given in the main XML file. They can be different, that's not a problem. I will say btn exit dot set on click listener, new on click listener. So far so good. We are getting an error over here. The error is because we haven't imported the on click listener. To import that, take your mouse on the error and say import on click listener. This might be very usual now. Let's create an alert dialog dot builder object because we want to first build the dialog. So we'll say step 1, build the dialog. So we'll say alert dialog dot builder a build, that's the object name, equals to new alert dialog dot builder. It wants the context of the application. In our case, we can give the context by saying main activity dot this. Then let's fill the properties of the dialog box by saying a build dot set title. Your title of our dialog box, are you sure? Then we can say a build dot set message, are you sure you want to quit the app? Once you are done, then you can say a build, let's say step 3, add the buttons. To add the buttons, we can say a build dot set positive button. On the positive button, we'll say yes, I want to exit. In the listener, we have to say new dialog interface dot on click listener. You can save it. Let's import this thing from here. Let me just again do it so that we can get a hang of it. New dialog interface dot on click listener. It will fill in the complete details. then once you're done, you can just have a closing bracket over here. Okay, because you have opened this bracket, you have to close this bracket. We are closing it over here. This, when someone clicks on yes, I will just say finish. So it finishes the complete application, and we'll say a build dot set negative button. I'll say no, I will stay. In this, we have to pass new dialog interface dot on click listener. Just press a semicolon over here and say dialog dot cancel. Okay, because we want to cancel this dialog, so I'll just cancel the dialog. Once you're done, then step 4 is to create this dialog. So I'll say alert dialog DLG equals to abuild dot create. It will actually create a dialog for me, and the step 5, show the dialog. Most of the people will just create the dialog but not show it. To show it, you have to say dlg.show, because you have to appreciate the fact that over here in step 1, 2, 3 and 4, we are just creating our dialog, whereas in step 5 we are actually displaying the dialog to the user. So displaying the dialog has to be done explicitly by you. Let's right click on the application and say run as Android application and go to our device. It will upload the application, install the application and start the application. Okay, so far so good. I click on this, it shows a dialog. This was the title. It says, are you sure? The message was, are you sure you want to quit the app? If you will say yes, it will quit the application out. You can again start the application by going to the home screen, and over here you have something called as alert dialog demo. Click on this and say exit application. You will say no, I will stay. It will do nothing. As we saw, there were 3 buttons over here: positive, negative and neutral. So let's add the neutral button as well. I'll say abuild dot set neutral button. Give the button's ID as I am confused, because if someone is not saying yes or no, then he's confused. So we'll say new dialog interface dot on click listener. Over here we will just make a toast dot make text, get the application context, and we'll say okay, so we will not quit the app. So I'll say toast dot length short dot show. So if someone clicks on the neutral button and he says I am confused, so we'll give him the output okay, so we will not quit the application. So I'll just right click on it and say run as Android application. It will start the application in a very quick while. Okay, so we'll just click on it. It will show me yes, I am confused and no. Yes and no are fine. This is the positive one, this is the negative one, and this was the neutral one. When you click on I am confused, it will give okay, so we will not quit the app.